Welcome to Pain with a Purpose, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of resilience, redemption, and purpose. I'm your host, Chris Woods, and each week we will sit down with guests who have faced challenges with substance abuse, mental health, and recovery. But we're not just dwelling on the past. Instead, we'll explore what keeps them driven towards a purposeful life. Join us as we navigate the journey from pain to a purpose. Welcome back to Pain with a Purpose podcast, season 1, episode 4. We're going to go with 4, with Jessica Knowles. Really appreciate you coming out. We are not local to where we currently are where we currently are is not local to where you live. So I really appreciate you making the trip. So we'll jump right into it. For the viewers that can't see at home, Jess is very prepared. She has a lot of notes right to the left of her that I had her removed from the picture. So we'll see how it goes. So again, thank you for coming on. What are we going to talk about?
My thought when you asked me, which thank you for asking me, was that treatment is not recovery. You know, you and I met working in treatment. We both actively work in behavioral health space as a profession and a full-time vocation. And I think it's important that we talk to people about how what we do for recovery to stay sober, for fun and for free, is not what you and I get paid to do on the daily.
It's a very loaded topic. We'll jump into it, right? So how about this, right? So how about we do a little bit of how you got into working in the treatment,
Sure.
Right? And then why you stayed working in treatment.
Okay.
And like when you got sober, how you got sober, and like we'll walk through all of that.
Okay.
Right? So
no pressure.
We'll start with what was the pain, right? Because we're on Pain with a Purpose, right? So what's the pain? So I assume you got sober at some point.
Right. So I got sober in September of 2007. I came into a 12-step fellowship in July of 2007 off of an arrest for terroristic threats, aggravated assault, out of a blackout, coming off alcohol. I had drank myself off of a heavy, expensive cocaine habit, and I was 21 and a half years old in summer of 07.
Wow. Well, you said the year. I was going to put you at like 27 now, but
yeah, I'm 38 now.
Okay. All right, so got sober at 21 in 07. We won't say where I was.
You were in high school, right?
I was definitely in high school. I was in the thick of it. So I was like literally just starting off in 07.
Okay.
If anybody has watched like any previous episodes, I was just really finding my addiction at that point.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of 07, I was definitely fully addicted to opiates and a few other things, but wow. So you were getting sober around that time.
So I was getting sober. You were in high school. I was supposed to graduate in 2004, but I dropped out of high school as soon as driver's ed was over. They stamped the thing that I needed for the learner's permit, and I was like, I got places to be. So I had already started. I started at a pretty early age, and I was in institutions as an adolescent, and not the pretty ones. Like the scary ones, like Friends Hospital, where they throw chairs.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of therapy.
Was it scary back then too? Not back then. Not like it was.
No, it's okay. Like this is. I mean, I'm 16 years sober now, so we're going back 20 some years. So back then's accurate. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've never experienced, but I've heard stories, right? And I have coworkers that have to frequent that place every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. It was a rough place to be, and I was just a kid from Cherry Hill, just a girl.
Oh, so you came across the bridge.
Culture shock.
Oh yeah,
a little bit. That was after doing two tours at Kennedy, Cherry Hill. That was after going to Carrier Clinic in Belmead.
Okay.
And at the time, my mom was with a really nice guy who was a hospital administrator in Philadelphia, and I don't know if they were trying to do a scared straight or a reality shock kind of thing. But after going to Friends, I realized that wasn't somewhere I wanted to be again. So I tucked in my crazy a bit for a while until the culmination of 2007 of getting arrested and being airborne on my grandparents' driveway, spitting, frothing at officers saying, "Give me a cigarette." Just such a lady. In a neighborhood where your neighbors bring up your trash cans if it's past 9 a.m. for you, and like people cut their lawns with shears.
It's a very nice area. Yeah.
Very nice.
I mean, listen, you said cigarette and it triggered me because, like, how good were cigs, though?
I needed them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even today,
I made sure I had change.
Even in movies, right? I say it to my wife all the time. I'm like, how good does that cigarette look right now?
Sometimes it looks romantic, but I remember buying cigarettes with change at the Hess gas station. I remember putting 83 cents in my Oldsmobile back then and being able to get around.
83 cents.
That's what I had. That was a bottom. It was in my cup holder. You know, back when you had like change, you just like had change because you could actually buy something with it.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, 83 cents is not getting you anywhere today.
Yeah, no, my move in my slumming it was to take one of my mom's packs of Salem Lights out of her carton on the top of the refrigerator and shake the rest.
Salem 100?
No, just the slide box. Yeah, with the yin yang. I thought it was so cool in middle school.
That's how I started smoking cigs.
Yeah, I was doling them out. We would have been good friends.
Mm-hmm.
So
Korean menthol.
Yeah.
That's what those are.
So I would take a pack out in the morning and I would slide the rest to the front of the carton and put it back on top of the refrigerator.
Oh my God.
And I thought it was slick.
I literally, so this is weird.
You can taste it right now.
No, but like, so it was my mom and my grandma and my grandfather that raised me.
Mm-hmm.
But back then they bought them by the carton.
Yeah.
Right? So I did the same shit.
Yeah.
Like they would buy them by the carton. There was the cigarette cabinet. And I would just take a pack out.
Pick a pack.
I was the man though, because nobody else had packs back then.
But stack it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So 07, you got sober.
I got sober. I called Intergroup in my area.
Really?
I'm one of those people that called Intergroup. And they directed me to a church that was super close to my grandma and pop's house, right outside of Old Orchard. And I went to that church and I was so like spun out, but I had a car, no car insurance. I was using the 6-month card. Like I had paid 6 months ago. So they'd send you like the Prudential car insurance card for the next 6 months. So,
okay.
So I had that in the whip. And it's crazy how the ego grows back. Cause I went from being terrified at the charges, like the thin papers I woke up next to. I'm like pink and green and white. Like that's not good. Mm-hmm. Like you don't want to wake up with carbon copy documents. And I went from afraid to blending in like a chameleon right in that meeting. They said, you know, is anybody new here? I'm like, I'm Jess. I'm an alcoholic. I didn't know what that meant, but I did know I have a court date coming up. I work for a landscaping company. I make $8 an hour. I have no money. I don't have money for an attorney. Nobody in my family is going to hire an interventionist. They're pissed, you know? Mm-hmm. And I better be proactive about this problem. So like already I'm scheming. So like I'm using the program that's about to save my life unbeknownst to me, thinking I'm going to get like a get out of jail free card.
Or at least hoping so. Yeah.
For free. Yep. I'm going to give it my best.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to come and I'm going to drink your coffee and I'm going to say the things that you say. And I'm going to walk this tightrope like a good little girl and just make it through like the next 30 to 60 days, waiting to get that date. And this woman, Julie, hugged me after the meeting up front. Like they had passed around a meeting list for me. And she gave me this hug and like her hair smelled so good. Like she was so clean.
Like she was like sober.
She was like so sober. Like she not only showered, like she blew it out, you know, with maybe some product.
Really?
She was living.
It was that day of the week.
It was Monday.
Okay.
So listen, so she gives me this hug and by the end of the hug, I'm crying. And like people that know me, I don't really cry like that. I went through a lot of stuff when I was a kid and I just can numb myself and kind of cut that part off. And I'm like now crying into this lady's like beautiful redkin hair. And
redkin.
I wasn't crying because I found acceptance or a place or because I was in trouble. I wasn't crying because I just hurt somebody. I wasn't crying because I assaulted someone innocent. I was crying because I didn't know how I was going to get an eighth of a mile home to my grandparents and not stop at the spirit shop or not go to one of the local places that I got booze. I was crying because for the first time I felt like somebody took my fleece blanket and like, I don't know how to do life with like sober skin.
Yep.
And they told me like, keep coming back, kid. Because everybody was ancient. You know, like it wasn't a young people's meeting. It was old heads. There were people in suits, very articulate, very nice area. And yeah, Julie with the smell good hair.
So you stayed sober, you've been sober since?
Oh, I got smashed 60 days later, like 2 days before the court date that brought me in.
Really?
Unplanned. I'd been going to AA every day. I'm mowing Grandma and Pop's lawn. I'm jumping up to get the broom to sweep up before dinner.
Intentions were there.
Intentions to get out of trouble were there. And hopes to someday drink like a lady and learn something from you people were there. But they were pretty external intentions. It was like, have a roof over my head, which now, like, that hangs in the balance of, like, not acting like an animal and drinking. Because the person that I harmed was my mom, who also lived in the house at the time with my baby sister, who's 7 years younger than me. So I had scared the shit out of my sister. I had harmed my mom. And now my grandparents, I brought humiliation on them. They're just in their Florida place trying to enjoy retirement. And they're getting phone calls that I'm acting like a monster.
Well, side note, though, and the reason I say that is because, like, how many times have we seen, right? Because, like, what we do for work, and we'll get in there, where people actually can kind of, like, get a head start or at least, like, get pushed in the correct direction from external motivators, right? That wanted nothing really to do with being sober.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But then all of a sudden something happens.
Most of us with multiple years sober, from sitting back and observing and staying active in the program, I've noticed, did not wake up one day and say, I just want to be a better person.
No.
And you know what? I want to get healthy.
If that's the case, I would have stayed sober when I went to treatment when I was 19.
Right.
Right? Because I finally went and I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And then, I wake up sober in treatment and I'm like,
this is
I'm not like this. I'm not like any of you people. You got to come get me. You know what I mean?
Right.
If that's the case, I would have stayed sober and I would have never needed AA. Right?
Yeah. So I have a first step experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, going to a meeting every day, have my third step prayer card, got my LG chocolate. Okay.
What's LG? What's LG?
Remember them?
No.
Little LG chocolate phone. Boop, boop. Slides up. I got my Nelly Furtado ringback tone.
I thought you were talking about candy.
I'm thinking I have all the tools.
No. Well, see,
I got the coin, the card,
we had the razors,
okay? Name.
We had the razors.
No, I had a ringback tone from Nelly Furtado that was like, promiscuous girl.
I think I actually brought that up on a podcast I just did the other day.
Well, then cut it out. Because I had the part from Timbaland where he goes, I want you on my team. And she goes, so does everybody else. That's what you got if you called my phone back then.
Yeah, ringback tones. That was a Verizon thing.
I've had them to this day. Just very pricey.
Could you imagine calling
like
in your current role and what you do for work, right? Like all of a sudden there's a ringback.
It would be memorable. Maybe we bring it back. Listen, I had a Nextel first, and I was not a contractor, but my pocket did do. Where you at?
I was the worst. Like you'd be sitting at the dinner table and they'd be like, where the tree at?
I was working at Lids.
And I was like, yo, I'm eating dinner right now.
I was working at Lids.
Who got weed?
And the bus would let off from Camden and I would get like, yo, let me get that 7 5/8 Jankies. And I'd be like, which Jankies? We got 400 of that, John. That's when I had the Nextel.
All right. So, because we'll just keep getting sidetracked.
So listen, I have a first step experience working a program. What I thought was earnestly working a program. And I get tight, AKA drunk, 2 days before the court date that I came in to act like a good girl and be proactive and slick about this with no plans to get drunk. I get smashed. So I have a first step experience in the rooms of realizing that I was as physically sober as I was ever going to be. And the mental, that I had a glitch in the mental. I'm going to court. I'm trying not to go away for these charges. And I get hammered. And I could have pulled everything down on my head. And instead, what I decide to do is I get away with it, which is really dangerous for us. And I come back from this wedding in upstate New York, and I don't tell anybody. I don't share it at the meeting because I'm not convinced at the time that you guys aren't wearing a wire. Like, I don't know you. I've never been here. I'm afraid that somebody's going to run into my grandparents at Mass and tell them something. And I don't know who works for the municipal court because my charges, because I'm such a tough girl, get dropped down to municipal court. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't even a felony at this point.
No, I'm going to Cherry Hill.
Okay. I was the same way though. Right. So like I never actually like strung together too much time before I actually gave it like an honest shot. But I was like, these people are lying. There's no way these people are sober.
They smoke weed.
They can't be happy.
They're taking Valium.
They can't be happy. They can't be like sitting in a random room on a Wednesday night talking about God and being happy. That's not real.
They're kicking the dog when they go home.
Especially now with the life that they're claiming to live. There's no way.
Right.
Right. But we'll get into all that too. Anyway, so sober, 07, had a first step experience.
I stay the course, man.
Mm-hmm.
I get my get out of jail free. The judge bangs the gavel. I'm shocked. I'm standing there starstruck. My sponsor's there. She shows up at court for me.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly knows me from a can of paint.
But you had already drank at this point.
I didn't tell her that.
Right.
She thinks she's coming on an honest cause.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm letting her think that. We meet with the prosecutor. I give him the whole, I only do these things when I'm insanely drunk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't act like this. And I didn't have any adult charges. All my trouble had been adolescent. So there was no like carryover. So the judge goes, 1 year contingency basis. I don't see you back here again. Wham. And I was just standing there. And he goes, go pay your fine. I was like, okay.
And then you went back out.
No, it happened before that. And I stayed.
You stayed since then?
It happened a few days.
So wait, hold on.
So I come in, so I get arrested 7/7/07. Yeah.
Okay.
July 7th, 07.
Mm-hmm.
First AA, 7/8/07. Hammered drunk, 9/7/07. Court, 9/11/07, which I was like, oh, that's a bad date.
Mm-hmm.
I never go back out. I stay. That becomes my anniversary.
And you never told your sponsor?
I didn't tell anybody for 5 years.
Really?
I didn't tell my sponsor, my husband. I get married in AA. I graduate hair school in AA. I start working in treatment in AA.
You never told anybody?
No. I did what I did, which was an old school survival trick that I had learned in dysfunction as a youngin', which is I just took that and I did what I call shoving it down in my shoe.
Like it never even happened. Like it never even happened.
I just walk around on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the Princess and the Pea. I was used to carrying secrets and deceit. So I know how to do that. And I use the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to justify the secret, which is for me to rid myself of the guilt of this, I would really harm Graham, Pop, my mom, who I hurt.
Especially at this point.
My little sister. They're going to think I'm a monster and I'm going to mutate again into Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I have no right to unburden myself at other people's expense. I do a 5th step with 11 months sober in the woods, beautiful place up in the Poconos. My sponsor asked me, is there anything that you left out? And I lie to her, even though I love her by that point and trust her. Honestly, trust her.
Now, it's a really good point to bring up because, like, I don't know if anybody may watch this one day, right? And, like, so what was your thought when she asked that?
So we're out in the woods. It's beautiful. We're at Hawk Falls. And I said, no. And I looked up like this because we were out there for hours. She had me right.
Yeah.
And I looked up into my higher power that I call God. I said, you know, I know, we're good.
Mm-hmm. And you believed it?
I made myself, I 99% believed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was like, what do I need a human being for? I'm going right to the source.
So, well, you can use AA to your, yeah. And that's how silky you are.
Yeah. So by this point, I'll tell you what was really going through my heart and my mind. I really liked her and I wanted her to like me. Mm-hmm. And she was the first really close female friend I had sober. And I cared what she thought about me, so much so that I was playing with my life in the balance, not realizing it. And I'm competitive, and I had these 4 sponsee sisters, and she used to bring the 5 of us everywhere wearing tube tops and jean skirts. And I was competing with them, whether they knew it or not, to get through the steps. Because the only thing that pushed me more than the pain I was in of untreated alcoholism was finding out that Jen and Ashley were getting 8 and 9.
Yep.
So I was like, I'm going to get on this and finally do 4 and 5.
And then Jen and Ashley got sponsees. And then you were down bad.
No. Right now we're just in the woods. I'm not down yet. I'm coming from behind. Everybody loves an underdog. Yep. You know, we're Philly 4 fans. So I carry that around because then, you know what happens? Coins, anniversaries with cakes, deeper bonds, relationships. That sponsor became my maid of honor. I became hers. Now we're adults. Now I work in treatment. So I get a job in treatment when I have like 3 years sober. And back then it wasn't even like, nobody thought that you could get a job in treatment with less than 2 years sober. So I get a job in treatment when I have 3 years. And the truth of how that came about was like, there was a lot of God in that. I had gone back to school sober. I went to cosmetology school. I did really well. And I found out that that student that I am that dropped out, that was failing, when it's my money, and I'm sober.
Completely different ballgame.
Woo! I'm an ace, you know? So I invested in myself. I found out that I can be a really good student. And there had been a secret on my heart that I had tucked since I was an adolescent that I wanted to work in behavioral health. And it was from going to all those places and sitting in front of people with degrees that I interpreted saying, I know how you feel. And me being like, like I'm dying an inch at a time. I feel like my skin's wrapped in saran wrap. I'm in so much pain, like breathing hurts. And the only thing that makes me not hurt is what you're trying to separate me from. Like I need it to be here. And it felt entitled. Like if I have to drag around this carcass with this brain, with these thoughts, with these feelings, I'm entitled to those Salems underage. I'm entitled to that drink. I'm entitled to that smoke. I'm entitled to get stoned from morning till night. I mean, if you really think
about it, so like when I first started smoking cigs, right? Like that was the first time I used. Same. If I really think about it, right?
That's why I keep bringing up the Salems.
Because like the first time I actually like stole a pack, whatever it was, I'm like a real deal drug addict, right? So I was smoking shorts,
Same.
You know? Yeah.
Had to uncrinkle them things.
Yeah.
No lipstick.
No. They always had the lip on there. Oh man, you're taking me back. Yeah. So I would take it all the way up to the third floor where even if like someone came up, it always smelled like smoke up there. So I could never get caught, you know? But yeah, like that, the first time I took like a hit of a cigarette, of a Salem 100 menthol light, like that was using for me.
Because you got relief, right?
Immediately. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I did that for like 3 years probably before I even picked up a drink or a drug, you know? It's like that just clicked for me.
What age were you when people in your family knew you were smoking cigarettes?
Yeah. Well, everybody smoked, but
but what about you, young Christopher?
I was still I was in high school.
Yeah. Which like today is pretty unacceptable.
Actually, I was fully addicted to drugs long before they knew I was smoking cigs.
That's wild.
Yeah. Because like listen, I had like a whole perception about myself.
Think about how many times a day you smoke a cigarette.
Oh yeah.
You need the morning, after a meal.
Well, now with the vape.
Bedtime.
Yeah.
Well, now with the vape, it's my pacifier.
It's so bad.
It's like, you know, this jacket's dangerous. Too many pockets.
It's so bad. Options. So anyway, I cut you off, but that was like a random thought that I had that I was like, that was absolutely the first time I used.
So what I was talking about was like the entitlement because of my pain. So like massive grief. Like my middle sister passed away from cancer. She was sick for 5 years. We were in and out of Children's Hospital. No kid should have to kiss a dead child goodbye. And I went through that. And no parent should have to bury their children. So with those feelings, I felt entitled. Other things that we went through as a family, it just added to like what I'm talking about of like if you had to feel these feelings like you would too. And if you need me to be here and I'm not allowed to take the escape route of suicide because we already lost my sister, then like I'm going to do it on my terms, which means I don't want to draw a sober breath. Bottom line.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, that's hindsight, right? But like, were you having those thoughts? Were you already...
I was having those thoughts, Chris, when I was a pothead as a teenager, because I was one of them deep thinkers that was afraid to go out and drive because I thought the ground was like rushing water.
So you were paranoid when you were getting high?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. See, like I wasn't that intuitive until I like kind of came to in sobriety, right?
Yeah.
But that's exactly what it was for me too, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have that type of trauma, but it was like, I don't want to... You know?
I had sexual abuse trauma. I had secrets, thick secrets. And that's why I'm saying, like, so for me to walk around with that one drink, in my mind, minimizing it at the time, was easy because I had been sitting on a pile of heavy, hard things for so long. So I kept 3 things out of that 5th step.
Oh, so there's more.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I kept 3 things out. Fast forward, I'm multiple years sober. I'm working in treatment. I'm big fish, little pond. I'm staff on duty. My sponsor works under me. She's a tech now. I decided I was going to help and bring her into the helping profession. And you can't tell me anything because I'm working like 60 plus hours a week. And I'm running groups now. So I'm running group like 5.
Oh, you've hit the pinnacle at this point.
Oh, I got a day shift. I went from overnight grunt to 3 to 11, no life, to working double back, triple shift, you name it. I was worshiping my employer. You know, like our literature talks about like the big E employer being God.
Mm-hmm.
I lost sight of that.
You turned it into whoever your supervisor was.
I need the gold star and the raise and the recognition and maybe a nice puff email to go out about me and all that I've done for this place. Right? And I'm saying yes to anything they ask. It's like dance monkey, like how high? But meanwhile, I'm lonely. I'm so painfully lonely because I'm detached now from the fellowship because I've put this before. And I think that balance is an illusion. I think I'm always trading something for another, honestly. For me, anyway.
No, I mean, I had the same experience, right? Where it's like, and do I live by this? That's a whole other thing, right? But it has to be like God, right? My family, then everything else, right? Yeah. And like when I say God, like that's the program as well. But
included.
Most of the time, it's everything else, my family, then God, right? Yeah. And it's like, that's me just being very transparent, right? Like, should it be from the outside looking in, probably my family, everything else, God, or like they're interchanged? No, but like it needs to be God, right?
Yeah.
Family, everything else.
Yeah.
You know, the answer's always been the same.
Yeah, I wasn't showing up.
A direct correlation to how well I'm actually doing, right, is how that lineup is actually falling in my life, right? Work included. Like I can tie back, especially when I look really into it. Like if I'm doing bad at work, right, or if I'm doing bad mentally, it's a direct result of me like just not doing shit for my own recovery.
Sure.
So
I get
there's
to
my
this,
tangent.
You ever get to this like super judgmental place where like no one's doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like it gets to the point where somebody shows up 3 minutes late for work with a breakfast sandwich and a coffee, and I'm like, must be nice.
Sick. You don't care, okay?
Sick, dude.
Yep.
Haven't you seen that I've been here for 12 hours? Well, I was there for 12 hours because I lacked boundaries or any self-worth.
Yep.
That's what it really came down to, not because I was the pinnacle employee.
Yep.
Because I was without God.
Yep.
And without self. So I'm miserable. So who knows? You know, of course, what would happen? I'm not showing up as a wife. So we're getting a divorce. And this is what brings up the honesty in the fifth step. So we separate and I'm on my way to a meeting and he starts to like get healthier and happier. I remember he was playing indoor soccer. He's going to meetings again. He's dating a new girl. I can't have that. You know what I mean? Like I should be he should be pining for me in my sickness, in my mind. So every light I get to on my way to this meeting, as I depress the brakes and I can like feel my body lunge, I'm going through the 12 steps and thinking, what am I not sponsoring enough people? I've started a meeting in my house. I have 5 girls. I have 2 home groups. It can't be service. Next one, because I had pumped up my program. Next light I get to, I'm like, am I really not like believing in God? Am I still praying like in agnosticism? Like, I don't know. Next light, the very final light at Collins Ave and White Horse Pike, I hit the brakes in my old Delero. My body goes forward. And I'm like, I never told somebody all the truth. It was the things I left out of the fifth step. And luckily, I'm right there. I'm almost at St. Luke's Church, which I can see is up on the left, and I see the steeple. And I go to the meeting, and I'm sitting next to my sponsor, my legs going. Now, mind you, I am managing her at work. We are seeing each other 5 days a week.
Oh, now it's a whole different relationship, really.
What? Yeah. Now I look down upon her sometimes because I'm so hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and full of myself. And my legs going. And she's like, are you all right? And I was like, dude, I got to talk to you after this meeting. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, if I don't talk to you after this meeting, I might not ever tell anybody. So it's critical. And she's like, okay. And I'm acting like real bizarre. So I'm into meditation at the time with like Tibetan Buddhism, sitting for 40 minutes a clip because now I'm going to be like the yoga trauma therapist, whatever. I'm at that phase of my career. And we get in her car. She had a Pontiac G6 and I'm writhing with these wooden mala beads. And it's dark. And we
like,
see
what the fuck you doing, dude?
And I'm like, gee.
And how many years sober are you at this point?
5.
Yeah.
I'm like, I drank and we're in a tiny car.
Oh, Jesus. She probably thought you were like,
yo, she goes like this. When she like is now near her window
she
and
probably
door
was like, recently?
instead of the console. When? And I'm so I'm like freaking out that I'm even saying this stuff out loud because it's been in the vault for so long. And I know this means that I'm going to have to face it. There's no going back when you say the truth. It's big, you know? And I was like, September of 2007 at a wedding in upstate New York. And she goes, okay.
Like, okay, Jess, like, that's what's fucking tearing you up right now?
Yeah. I was like, and I spent 3 different $10,000 savings bonds of my ex-boyfriends that were for his daughters. And by the time I looked ahead in the steps and saw 8 and 9, I was like, that ain't happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I left it out of my 5th step intentionally. And she's like, okay, do you want to go get pancakes?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? Because my perception of myself was that I was like going to be seen as like a sociopath, like banished, like outcast, like, yo, Knowles is like sick. Like, I know we're all sick, but she's like, it's bad. You know, I thought it was going to be this like Hiroshima bomb. And here she's asking me if I want to go to Crystal Lake Diner.
Well, it was a Hiroshima bomb for you.
For me.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's all that really matters. And that's really my sickness, right? Is like my perception and how I perceive this world.
Oh,
right?
It's bad. It's twisty.
I can, drinking and drugging aside, right? Stone cold sober. Like, how am I perceiving this world? Right? And again, that ties directly into
your priority list.
Those 3 bullet points, right? Is it God, family, everything else? Or is it work, family, maybe God,
Mm-hmm.
And that's really like the truth of the matter, right? Because it's, again, and like, as people, if they are watching, right, it's really good or easy to sound like we're doing well,
sure.
right? But the truth of the matter is like, none of us do this shit perfect.
Watch
right?
what I'm doing, though.
Mm-hmm.
Ask my kids how I am.
Exactly.
Talk to my coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Find out the skinny, because I'll sound great from a podium.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I talk to my children when I'm short on temper?
Get your jacket. Let's go.
We do the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Get your shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you brought up a really good point. Not to talk about how good of a not talk about how good of a mother you are, because I'm sure you're not yelling at them all the time.
No.
But you said like that 3-year point, right? Because you brought up a really good point, and then we definitely need to talk about it in the sense of like, that was a thing, right? Where it was like,
it was a standard.
I was never like, so I didn't know that I wanted to work in treatment. I didn't know that I don't think I did, right? But I was like, at this point in my sobriety, I was living in, you want to talk about the pinnacle, I was the sober manager. I was the manager of a sober house. So like, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Big cheese.
I was working a mandatory 60 hours a week. And like, it wasn't even like overtime. It was like, that's just what we were doing. And I was like, I need something else. Like, I can't continue to do this anymore.
What were
Money's
you doing 60 hours a week?
So me and a sober buddy of mine who's still sober today, we were making labels up in Bucks County. We got hired through Manpower, if you've ever heard of that place, the temp agency.
Yeah. Of course.
It was a direct hire job.
Listen,
so not only was I not a temp anymore, I had health insurance.
When I was a discharge planner, we would send people over to LJ,
mm-hmm.
set them up with Manpower.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any money for rent, but they would help them out.
Mm-hmm.
In a couple of weeks, you'd have a job.
Listen, I don't know if she's ever going to watch this, right? But there was a woman, Bridget, that used to work at Manpower. And I don't think she realizes how much she set the trajectory of my life in the correct way.
With the label job?
With the label job. So I knew enough through going through to AA, like what it was supposed to look like to be a good employee, right? Mm-hmm. So she set me up with this temp job at Estee Lauder.
Nice.
And all day I was just putting
makeups,
colognes into a box for 8 hours. I lasted 4 hours. I was like, Bridget, I really appreciate the opportunity. Not your guy for this. If anything comes across your desk that, you have my resume, if anything piques your interest of like what I might be a fit for, call me, but I can't do this.
Okay.
So she called me and my buddy a few weeks later, and she was like, I have an opportunity. You would be direct hire. And I was like, so not a temp.
Nice.
They sent us up to York, PA, for like 12 weeks for training.
Label training.
It was for this it was going to recreate the world, this machine. It was horrible. I sucked at the job.
Did they give you a cool title like a comographer or something like that other than label maker?
I didn't even care what the title was. I hated everything about life at this point.
Okay.
But I needed the money.
Were you doing the steps?
I was.
Okay.
But I needed the money. So I had my first car loan that my mom had to co-sign for me, right? Yeah. I had recovery house rent that I had to pay for.
You're paying insurance by now? Car insurance?
I was paying insurance.
You're legal.
I was legal.
It's expensive.
Mom still paid my phone bill though. Shout out, Mom. You were a real one for that. But I needed the money. Right. So I took a shot, and I actually did what people in the rooms told me to do. Right. I went up to York, PA, and I reached out to the one person that I knew from Lancaster. I didn't know anybody up there. And it was Susie Q. I didn't know. That's how I knew of her.
Okay.
She's got married now. I think, she's still very much a big part in like the recovery community, but she pointed me in the right direction. Right.
Okay.
I was 2 years, so like 18 months
So they're
sober.
paying for you to stay up there at label making school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And next thing you know, she puts me in the right direction, right? Next thing you know, I'm in the car riding bitch in the back seat
Okay.
at 18 months sober,
Right.
with people with like 30 days sober.
What's riding bitch? The skinny seat? The
I was
kid
riding,
seat?
I was riding
The
bitch.
little baby seat?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the back seat.
You got some big boys next to
all
you?
newcomers in there. I got 18 months, and I'm just like, so how much time you guys got? And they were like, I just got out of treatment last
3
week. I'm
days.
like, whoa, what the
Uh-huh.
But
Who's driving?
I have no clue his name. But long story short, ended up at a meeting up there, White Rose. You ever been
Sounds
there?
like a club. No.
It's definitely it was a bigger meeting up there.
Sounds like a karaoke
and I was
spot.
like, I was home.
Really?
I was home right away. Yeah, so like you can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
I did what they told me to do. I reached out. It was a little bit uncomfortable of a ride out there, but like by all means, like I found my people out there.
Did you move?
No.
Okay.
No, I came home after that and then whatever. So I say all that
Yeah.
to say that eventually I hated that job and I was like, I got to do something else. Right. And like what we do today is completely different than what I thought I was allowed to do.
Oh, for sure.
At the amount of time sober that I had.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Listen,
that was a thing.
My first job in treatment, the guy put me through 3 interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I still talk to him this day. I had the privilege of going to his wedding, and there's a voicemail from him on Friday. I called him from the Phillies game, and he still works in treatment to this day. But they really had to make sure that I was going to be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And he made it very clear to me. He asked me, he challenged me, sure you want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to do this?
We didn't know what we were, first off, we didn't know.
So he tried to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, this is spiritual warfare. And every day that you come in this facility, I need you to make sure that all of your needs are met before you cross the threshold to that door.
Yep.
Because you're dealing with vulnerable people.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I brought up to you, like, working in treatment is not what we do for our recovery.
Nope.
What I do for a paycheck and what I love to do, and I feel privileged to do, is not the vocation that keeps me sober. The guy that hired me to work in treatment when I had 3 years gave me like a foreboding warning that this is spiritual warfare, and to have all my needs met before I walk in the door every day, and not ever get it twisted that what I was doing for work for a paycheck was actual altruism that was going to keep me sober.
Right.
Because a lot of people that we've met and loved and gotten close to, which we've seen now and we have hindsight on, have gotten it mixed up that coming to work every day and running groups or doing whatever we're doing to help folks and their families is somehow for our recovery.
Right.
And I have found that it couldn't be more opposite. What I found actually is when I work too much or I run groups 5 days a week, the last thing I want to do is go sit in a meeting because it feels like I'm in a group. Because it's kind of what it looks like.
Yep.
And the last thing I want to see is anything like intervention on TV.
Yep.
Or the last phone call I want to answer is my sponsee that just, overused their clonidine and is feeling pain about it.
Yep.
But that's actually the phone call I need to pick up.
So furthermore, right, I think, so my perspective was a little bit different, right, where it was like, there was a time requirement, if you will, right, to work in treatment because they didn't know if you were going to stay sober, right?
They asked us. Did they ask you?
The first 2 jobs I had, they did.
Yeah. Mine asked.
Mm-hmm.
How much time do you have?
Mm-hmm.
And I proudly let them know 3 years.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
1 year over your requirement, sir.
Now, I also thought that I could put, like, it was like a prerequisite.
Experience.
And it's not.
No.
It's really not.
It's not.
Because, like, depending on where I was on any given day, right, especially as a tech, like, if I was in a bad spot and you get told to go fuck yourself a number of times working as a tech in treatment, right? Yeah. Like, don't catch me on that day, God forbid. So it was.
Well, did you ever suffer from like Super Trooper?
Oh, yeah.
Because God forbid anybody gives me the egomaniac with the inferiority complex a title, a key ring.
Yep.
Bedtime's up to me.
Yeah.
Forget it.
But on the other side of that, though, is like I also have been given, and I wouldn't even say titles, right? But been put in situations to lead, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like, I'm going to try to lead to the best of my ability, almost like from a coach's standpoint, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm never going to try to come down on somebody or anything
Mhm.
like that. My stuff came from while I was like trying to like get that position, right? Where it was like,
What's that mean?
so like when I was a tech, and this is like full transparency, and if nobody's ever experienced this side of me, good. If you're listening and you did, I'm sorry. But it was like I wasn't in a leadership role, or I wasn't in a lead role or a supervisor role or anything of that nature, right? But like I acted like I was.
Okay.
And that's like a dangerous spot for me to be in, right? Because really that's just resentment.
Competing.
It's not until like they're actually like, hey, we need you to do this or we need you to do that, where it's like I'm actually like my coworker's biggest advocate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know why I'm like that, but it's, I don't know. Yeah. Weird.
When I was using work as an escape route sober, I found out that I could work myself to oblivion, where by the time my head would hit the pillow, I didn't feel a dang thing.
Yeah.
But getting to that point, I was a bear to be around because nobody was doing it good enough or correctly. And I suffered from like taking everybody's inventory. If you were 3 minutes late, I knew about it.
Yeah.
You didn't care about this place or the patients. Like it
you
was
were-
like my brain,
Yeah.
like was really out of control. And that came as a result of putting work before God, before service, before the fellowship, before the steps, before being honest with a sponsor. And the last thing I wanted to do after running group 5 days a week was sit in an AA meeting because it felt like I was sitting in group.
Yep.
So I think one of the most beautiful things about the roles that like we're in now is like a lot of it feels like I'm an entrepreneur that gets to help people with someone else's money, product, right? Treatment center.
I think a big part of what we do, right, kind of spills into like what my or your or anybody's personal brand is, right?
Yeah. And that it overlaps in a place where like my values align to my purpose, right? My purpose, which I found a purpose in recovery, is to help anyone, anywhere,
Absolutely,
that reaches out a hand for help, right? Whether that's with substance use or mental health issues or being afflicted by a loved one that suffers from what we suffer from. Because honestly, I feel like the families have it the worst.
Yeah.
They get all the pain with no party, no relief.
Nope.
And, I take it seriously, like their vulnerability of trusting and calling one of us to do the right thing.
Yep.
So it's a beautiful thing. One of the things about the role we're in now, like I can make a 7:45 a.m. meeting.
Yep.
I can make my home group every single Thursday night at 7 p.m. But it took pain and grinding through the dark ages of the overnight shifts, the 3 to 11 p.m. to finally make it to the other side of day shift. And I feel like for the people that I've watched skip that and come right into, thinking that it's going out to eat with your friends or hang around and look nice and go to open houses, there's so much missing from the depth of like what it actually looks like to do this work.
Oh. So another really big and like important topic, right? Not that we're like running a whole lesson on what it is to be a marketer in the field of drug and alcohol, but we're mental health, right? Where it's like, how many people, always come up to me and they're like, yeah, like, what do you do? Like, you're just always out to eat, or you're always doing this. You're always like, I don't golf.
I've been spotlighted, I've been seen in a Titleist hat here and there.
Well, you just recently did one, I think.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm not there yet.
But it looks like the life of luxury.
Sure.
Right?
But how many times first off, let's just like not even touch on the stress aspect of it yet. Right. But how many times do we walk into meetings where we know that people don't want to talk to us?
For a 95% rejection
rate. And then also like our main objective is to, like get told no multiple times and then eventually get to a point where it's like, no, you're going to call me. At some point, you're going to call me. Right. Not just the person that you think is going to be a fit for the place that I work for, but more importantly, anybody that's struggling, right?
Let me be a resource.
Yeah.
Let me take this person off of your hands
Yep.
to put them in the right hands so that you can go have a break.
And that's like, there's people that are going to like stay in the roles that we're in, and there's going to be people that like kind of come in and come out, and like you see a higher turnover rate in our type of role. But the people that last are the people that are in it for the right reasons, right?
Well, what we've seen over the years, and I think we were talking about this before the show, is the people that started off doing whatever was needed.
Yeah.
Working those hard shifts, being at the bottom of the barrel, plunging in toilet, taking the trash out, literally doing whatever.
I never plunged in any toilets.
Listen, I started off in adolescent res.
Oh, wow.
And they don't know how to do that.
Wouldn't expect them to.
Well, I would step in. You know, I'm not going to wait for the janitor to get there. We have 5 kids in 1 bedroom.
Yep.
It's got to go.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean of like, you know, boogies on the wall, kids making fifis, trenches, them getting mad.
Kids making fifis.
Them getting mad that I took away their overnight pass and deciding we're going to lock her in the walk-in freezer.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
You locked? Did you just?
I was almost locked in a walk-in freezer.
Oh,
for revoking an overnight pass.
I heard that completely wrong. I was like, did she just admit to a crime?
No. Not on the podcast. Only in the fifth step.
So they tried to. They were threatening to lock you into the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, kids are vicious in general.
Dumping frogs through office windows, 1-floor unit.
Oh, wow.
Fun.
Yeah.
But we had fun. The beauty is, like, I'll hear from these kids today. And this is back in 2010. Well. Some of them, some of them are on our path.
Yeah.
And some of them will make comments like, best counselor I ever had, even though I hated her when I met her.
Yep.
Because they were craving structure. Yeah. So off of that topic real quick, though, to talk about, I guess, like the gift of desperation. So like the gift of desperation, I feel like is God's to give and mine to find and unpack and open. So if I really look at it as a gift, like I have to unwrap it.
Sure.
And sometimes with multiple years sober and the beautiful children and career and full life and responsibilities, that might look like paying to go to therapy. I don't like that. I like Lululemon. I like sneakers.
Yep.
I like watching the Phillies game. You know, I like hanging out with my friends. But sometimes, like, it really looks like that. It looks like getting a new sponsee that doesn't have a whip and driving past my home group to go get her and bring her to the home group.
Yep.
It's all the things that we did early on to this day that I go do, even though they're inconvenient. Because, like, real service for me consistently is something that is inconvenient.
Well, it's supposed to, right?
It's real. And I've never once regretted it. I never drive home from that endeavor or mission or speaking commitment.
After the fact, you don't regret it. No, but on the way, you're cursing yourself. You're cursing them the whole way.
On the way, dude, I'm working referrals. I'm trying to listen to music. My phone's ringing. I just wanted this like downtime, right? I'm checking the bed board. I'm sending, check the email. There's 5 million things going on. Nobody knows how to drive. And then I get this person. They get in my car. And they let me know how the girls in the recovery house are mean to them. Someone stole their hairbrush. And we go to the meeting. And like all's well in the world.
Now, is your home group, is it a women's meeting? Or
no, it's a big book study.
Big book breakdown?
It's a big book breakdown that's open to kids.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So during the pandemic.
Well, sure. People had to make do.
Listen, I've been a single mom. I've been a mom with no co-parent before. Yeah. For over a year at a time. So like I've had my baby on my hip for a speaking commitment. Yeah. Taught workshops. Like my kids are AA kids. Listen. So every Thursday night, 7 to 8 p.m., my kids are there. There's toys there. It's at the nursery in the bottom of the church. Other people's kids are welcome. I encourage them to bring them because moms and dads got to make meetings. And it's the one place where I'm like, listen, we were all real rowdy before we got here. Yeah. I don't think we're going to get our panties in the bunch over them trying to serve everyone fake food. Because that's what they do. They go around the meeting trying to give you corn on the cob plastic. It's precious.
So how old are your kids now?
My kids are 8 and 6.
So your 6-year-old, right, is still getting into like the writing and the reading, right? So the other day, not the other day, maybe like a month ago, right? My wife made a TikTok, right, of like, your kids, write this or that, whatever. It was funny, right? But then like it goes over to like what my kids write or write out of a book. Yeah. And they're writing the big book.
Are they?
Yeah. Like those are my kids.
That.
But like, what a beautiful gift, right? I mean, like, if somebody from the outside that doesn't like realize like what we have gone through, right? They
Yeah.
might be like, their kids see that book, like, what's
That
going on?
poor kid. Or the things they must
What
hear
a
in that
beautiful,
meeting.
yeah, like what
right?
a beautiful gift, right?
I shudder to think what these kids are exposed
My
to.
kids have never seen my wife or myself pick up a drink or a drug,
Yeah.
right? And it also says in our book, right, like a better example, right? Again, if I'm on the beam, is how I am like at home or at work.
Respective homes, affairs.
Now, like when I'm not on the beam, it sounds a lot like, get your fucking jacket,
Yeah.
you know? When I'm on the beam, right, am I kind, loving, and tolerant?
Yeah.
But what a beautiful gift, right? Like, go ahead, rewrite the big book. I don't care.
So my thing was like having the meeting with kids there, right?
Mhm.
Or acceptance of kids there is like, it's far better for mom to be here
Mhm.
than mom not to be here, you know? That's beautiful that your kids are like rewriting the book.
Yeah.
My daughter wrote me a note that said, Mom, I see you. And I don't know what that means, but it has a red heart. And I put it on the credenza, like in my foyer. And I'm going to ask her what it means now that you brought this up. But like, I took it as like, I see you,
Yeah.
you know, like intimacy, into me see, I see you.
So, and we probably didn't have plans for the podcast to go this way, right? But like, so we haven't had a conversation
No.
with our kids yet about it. They just asked like, where are you going? I'm like, going to get my medicine, you know, or whatever.
Okay.
Or like I have a meeting, right? They don't know what type of meeting it is. I think it's a work meeting or whatever.
Right.
Have you given any thought of like what that conversation is going to look like?
Not in terms of explaining it to them about myself, but I have had to explain to them why a couple people aren't in our lives anymore. And two of them worked in the field, and two of them treated treatment as if it was their recovery,
Right.
and they got the two confused.
Yep.
And you know, my kids, it was last year, one of our friends that passed away that had been in our home, had their children in our home. And I decided not to disrespect their intelligence, but also not to go too deep into alcoholism. And I just let them know that he's no longer with us because he took somebody's medicine that's not his.
Yeah.
And they were my son was like very solemn about it. And I think he processed a little better because he's in third grade. So he kind of understood a little bit more.
Yeah.
And my daughter, who's 6, will bring it up from time to time. And actually, it's interesting because she'll pretend that she's getting referrals, like on her phone.
She watches.
She's been doing that
mommy.
for
Yep.
years.
Mhm.
And she was like, I work in, and she was like popping it. She's like, I work in mental health. And then she goes like this, and that's drugs, right, Mom? For drugs. And I was like, yeah, we help people with problems with drugs and mental health.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what they're saying at school.
Well, I mean, listen, I don't know what they're saying at school. But I will say, like, you know, because there's a lot of times where I feel, and this is just me, right? I mean, I know there's still people that are getting better. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
I don't see, I see the sick people come back in and out often.
Yeah.
Right.
In work, in the rooms.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, it takes a toll on me. And I get to like some dark places. Right. But when I heard my wife tell my one daughter the other day, you know, my one daughter must have said like, hey, what does Dad do for work? Right. And my wife said he helps really sick people. And that like warms my heart. Right. Because like, I know that any given day I am that sick person.
Sure.
Whether I picked up or not.
Well, Chris, do you ever take a phone call on Bluetooth in your car while they're in the car?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's moments there. I've answered calls from patients that are crying.
Yeah.
And they get quiet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they know. They absolutely know.
They give attention, you know, and respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are still doing good. I know that for a fact. Like us.
The
people
collective us, sober parents.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That.
Oh, you mean as like contributing to the, to our purpose.
Absolutely.
Of helping people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just tough, right? Because if I'm being honest, like it takes a toll on me.
Mm-hmm.
Because my main job, not only to be like a walking example of what AA or recovery can be, but is also to be a positive person and be a direct correlation to like the place that I work for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of times I'm talking to very negative people or people that don't want help or don't want whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And I have to remain positive. And
you know
be
what
a light.
I love doing with that is asking people like, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
because they might not want what we have. They might not want to be sober or clean.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like for me, like I don't have to work on a different goal than somebody else. I could just ask them what do they want.
Yeah.
And then kind of set it from there. If somebody says like, well, I really want to be a Harley mechanic, but they haven't been able to stop using or drinking.
How are we going to get you there?
Right. Their goal might not be sobriety, and that's okay.
Yep.
But like, what's standing in the way of you taking that test or taking those classes?
It goes back to the original thought.
Well, I've been getting banged up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is it time to do something different? Or what would it look like? You know, the original thought of like environmental or like external motivation, right?
Mm-hmm.
My motivation didn't have to be internal. I don't think I even met the third tradition of a desire to stop drinking. I had a desire to stop being in pain.
Yep.
I had a desire to get out of trouble.
And listen, my desire was that I went to my mom because I'm that hero, right? It's still in my mom's house. And I'm like, Mom, listen, I'm going back to treatment. Shocker. But I'm not coming home this time. And she's like, well, why? Because I was welcome home. But she was like, you know, you can come back here. And I'm like, Mom, I can't keep doing this to you. Right?
There's something different. I've noticed, like you and I have this too, of that it was voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
I was living at home too.
Yeah.
Nobody was kicking me out.
Yeah. I don't know. So anyway, I feel like we could talk forever, right? About this stuff. And I'm probably going to have you on the show again.
I would love to.
Right? Because we might have to do like a follow-up.
Yeah.
What other note you want to go off of before we shut it down? See, the viewers can't see the notes. There's a lot of notes over here, a lot of Post-its. How about this? So as a whole, right, because you brought up a really good point of my work or our work, right,
Mm-hmm.
is not altruistically helping somebody, right? So like our work is not our recovery.
Mm-hmm.
What is the whole purpose though, right? So you got sober, you
Of
work in
what?
treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Of you. What's the driving force, right? Is it really out of the big book, right? If I stay close to him and perform his work well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Will everything be taken care of? Or is it more of a deeper level of like, why didn't you just stay a tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
What made you continue to have like this fire to continue to grow, right? Like you got sober and you wanted more,
Yeah.
right? Like what was the purpose behind all that? And then what's the purpose today?
I think that's a phenomenal question. I was pulled up to different positions.
Mm-hmm.
I was asked to come up to learn more. I was given more responsibility because I could handle it.
Sure.
And every time it would seem like I'd hit that sweet spot, like I said, like big fish, little pond, and I'm comfortable and I'm the best at this. It'd be like, nope, time to grow again. And courage comes as a result of fear, right? Like walking through the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I knew at the end of the day, I told you, like I went through the steps again with multiple years sober and I was making the most money I'd ever made, but I just felt dead inside. And I hit my knees at the beginning of like the hour alone after doing the fifth step. And I was like, God, whatever you would have me be. And our book says like, whatever you would have me be. It doesn't say like what you would have me do or what my title is. It just says whatever you would have me be. And I was like, even if it's Jesse the janitor, like from the true heart, like those kind of like, please help me and put me in alignment with your will. And the answers always come and they come through us. Like God will talk to me through us. I'll get a phone call from somebody out of the blue where I work now. The owners had called me 3 Junes in a row. And this year it just felt true and right and ready. I had been letting them know prior to this year, like, you won't get 150% of me and that won't be okay with me. And this year, Jules was going into kindergarten and I knew our lives were about to change. And it was like, time to grow again. The purpose, I feel like, with the work that I get to do now, which is such a gift, is I get to teach people on my team how to do what I do, but play to their strengths so that it's them and really like maximize their strength.
Yep.
And in that, they get to have a life like mine, if they want it, with financial security.
If they put the work in, right?
If they want it, they'll do it. It's for people that do it.
That'll be like the second time we have you on the podcast, right?
Yeah,
because
we'll
like there's a whole different one there for that topic, right?
And I get giggles from people that I supervised in the past, and I get texts. And one made me laugh the other day, and she said, out of nowhere, she said, do you remember that time you wouldn't let me go to an open house? And I'm driving. I get this text and I'm like, what? No. She's like, you told me that I couldn't go to an open house because I hadn't done any actual work.
Mm-hmm.
And then another time you told me I was the only person on the team out of 4 that could go because I was the only one that worked and you didn't let anybody else go. And I don't remember that from 2018, but it stuck in her head. And today she's a director of a team.
Yep.
You know, it's the things
and
like that.
And that's just good leadership, right? Because it goes back to the, remember we were like, everybody wants to do what we do, right? But everybody thinks that we just do open houses or we just do lunches. It's like, no.
Yeah, I think the parlay, though, is the same thing with sobriety. Mm-hmm. I wanted that first sponsor, what she had. She was tan with a slamming body with a white Mercedes SUV. Mm-hmm. I wanted what I saw she had, or I thought she had.
Yep.
But I wasn't doing what she was doing, so I didn't get what she got.
Yep.
And it's kind of the same thing with work. And that tends to be true. Same thing with practice and talent and performance.
Yep.
There's a lot of people we meet with talent that aren't willing to develop the skills or humble themselves and grind out.
Yeah, we were literally just talking about somebody that we both know, right? And you referred to him as just like a genuine, good guy, right?
Yeah. I said, I believe that man goes to work.
Yeah, and he does.
Right?
Absolute nutcase, right?
Yeah.
Can't shout you out, but I'll tell you on the back end.
Beautiful human.
But absolutely works.
You can see it in the way that he carries himself, and we can see it in the places we don't run into him.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, I really appreciate you making the trip.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for encouraging this Mitchell and Ness fit.
I think it's a good hat.
I love the hat.
I can't believe they sold.
Yeah.
Right?
Fanatics.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
No, where are they at? Right
everything's
now?
40. Yeah, everything's 40% off tomorrow. They should pay me for this. Maybe I could get a little something.
Shout out Mitchell and Ness. Yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow 40% off apparently.
So, already said thank you. Oh wait, I almost forgot.
What are we talking about?
If you like what we had to say,
yes,
right.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram, Pain W Purpose, YouTube, Pain with a Purpose podcast, and Apple and Spotify, Pain with a Purpose.
Big time.
Yeah, all streaming platforms.
I'm proud of you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it. This has been a really cool experience in my life. So yeah, I'm excited to see what this turns into, and we're still just starting off. I still have no clue what I'm doing.
Right. I mean, you asked me a super loaded question about purpose.
Oh yeah, what's your purpose? You didn't even answer it.
Whatever God would have me be.
Right. And
it's
that's
broad, right? It sounds like a BS broad answer, but truly, I think I have God assigned roles, right? The book teaches us that we have all these stage characters.
Yep.
And that's what's been running the show with the 7 areas of self. And that's where we get all twisted up. So my fix to that is always to go to, what would God have me be? So I have a couple God assigned roles that I know for sure because I didn't create them.
Right.
One is I'm my mother's daughter.
Yep.
I didn't create that. So that's clearly a God assigned role. I'm a daughter. I'm a mother. Listen, I went through in vitro fertilization multiple times to become a mother. I never became a mother until it was God's time for me to be a mother.
Right.
Now I'm blessed to be a mother twice over. So that's clearly a God assigned role. Because I tried playing God in that with medicine and egg retrievals and all that. Didn't happen until it was time.
Yep.
So that's a God assigned role. I'm a daughter. I'm a mother. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I earned my seat. Mm-hmm. And I think that God created me and who and how I am through my experiences so that I could be one of one for another person. So those are 3 roles that I'm sure of.
Yep.
That's all I'm really sure of.
So when you say what would God have me be? Right.
Yeah.
Immediately, and thank God for the people that came before me, right? And good sponsorship and people pointing me in the right direction, because he probably doesn't even know that he plays a part in people's lives like this, but I'm a very firm believer of the ripple effect.
Okay.
There's a gentleman, you might have heard of him, maybe not, Ricky D. Right?
Yeah, of course. I had him out to my home group.
He is a phenomenal human being, right? But what really sticks in my head is he would say, Chris, when's the last time anybody asked you what you wanted? Nobody asked me. All you ever want from God is I want this, I want that, I want this, but I never asked God, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sticks in my head, right? What does he want me to be? Right?
Not
how my little plans and designs.
You know how sometimes you're not sure?
Mm-hmm.
Or you have trepidation around something?
Yeah.
There's this beautiful thing, and even with where I work, I'll bring it to God, I'll go to sleep. And when I wake up, I know. there's a feeling upon awakening that I'll get. And if it's a belly wobble, it's a no.
Is this before or after the vape?
Before. It's in that cloudy, like, you're kind of here, you're kind of not. The alarm's gone off.
Yeah.
I haven't risen from the pillow yet.
Okay.
I'm coming to.
Yeah.
It's in that hazy part where if I have that anxious, which kind of feels like I'm going to get, you know what?
Yeah.
Right? It's that like kind of bad feeling, but kind of fun, thrilling. It's me.
Yeah.
That's what I've come to find. If I wake up inspired, like I already have ideas and you can see like the smile in my face, like the genuineness of like, I can bring something to this.
Yeah.
So they offered me this job. I brought it to God at night. I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning with ideas of what I could contribute to them and excitement about 2 female team members I had never met that I was going to be able to coach and manage and that I might be able to pour into them for their security and for their ripple effect.
That's when you know.
It's a yes.
Yep.
And then fear can come in of like, oh, shoot.
Yep.
My whole life's about to change.
That's you just taking.
I don't like change.
That's you just taking, or that's us, right? Just taking the wheel back.
Well,
right?
it's
We're
self-will.
like, you know
the bondage of self is what I grapple with. It's not about a drink or a drug today. It hasn't been a long time. I haven't wanted to drink since 2012. And I got sober in 2007.
Yep.
And the reason I wanted to drink in 12, and we talked about it, is because I wasn't living right.
Yep.
So I wasn't getting the promises. So I didn't have relief. I'd been working the steps backwards.
Yep.
Yeah, it's, you know, what's my purpose? Whatever God would have me be today.
Yep.
It might be different tomorrow.
It probably will be.
I pray for acceptance of his will. I don't pray for things. I know people, you know, have gone through phases of that and there's, you know, no shade about it, but it's just acceptance of his will.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my prayer today, we're going to keep going on tangents and that's fine. But like my prayer today is just thank yous, right?
Really?
Like even on my bad days, right? Like it's just thank yous. Like, God, I know I probably caused some harm today, but like, thank God, right? For another day sober.
Yeah.
Right? Because even if like, you hear that really corny saying like, oh, my worst day sober is better than my best day drinking. I don't know
what they were
that.
drinking, dude.
I don't know about that.
I don't know what kind of drinking they were doing.
I do know that like any day sober is still a really good day.
Well,
Right?
because we have a shot.
Right. And like we've, again, another tangent, right? Where we've like twisted that into like, well, if you didn't pick up today, like that's, you know, you're doing great. Don't worry about the steps. Like what?
No,
like,
I can't do a step a year.
No. Like I need to get better now. You know what I mean?
And so does everybody around me that loves me, that's been hanging in through what I've put them through.
Yeah. So again, my prayers are just thank you. You know what I mean? Thank you. And then in the morning, it's like, God, please.
What are you asking please for?
Just relieve me of this crazy head so I can be of service to others.
All right.
Right? That's it. That's my version of the third step.
I like it.
Right?
Relieve me of the bondages of self.
Relieve me of this crazy head that hasn't hit yet, but I know it's coming at some point because history tends to repeat itself. So I can at least be available to help somebody today.
Yeah.
Right? That's all my prayer looks like.
You know what I do a lot? I pray when I throw the car in reverse. When I'm leaving my driveway.
For what? You have a camera. What are you praying for?
I'm just touching base with God. There's something about
why
that.
reverse though?
Because I'm about to go out into the world. It's probably in everybody's best interest because I'm not fit for human consumption. All right?
Yeah.
Even 1 cup of Bustelo in. Listen, it may have been difficult getting from the shoe closet and the backpacks to the vehicle.
This might be extra footage, but I wish people could have been like a fly on the wall because I don't know if you were nervous or if you were just like still in work mode or what.
When?
But like she didn't need me for this. Like she could have like ran this by herself because she was walking through talking to herself about like what you were going to say on the podcast. And I'm like, she just left the room. I don't know where she's going to. Okay. She's just talking to herself. Okay. So, you know, I can only imagine what it looks like when you're putting the car in reverse before you pray.
It's loud.
Yeah. All right. But with that, because we'll just go on another tangent.
Yeah.
And it's getting late and you have a long drive. And I got to wrap all this stuff up. So see you guys in a couple weeks whenever this comes out. But we really appreciate it. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, whatever that little saying is. I'm not really familiar with it yet, but it does help, right? Because, this is a pretty cool thing that we're doing here and we're going to continue to do it. So greatly appreciate you coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.
Yeah.